Greetings and welcome to the pod. My name is Mark West, and I must apologise, it's been some time since I've put out a podcast and I really don't have a great excuse for it, but this one's pretty cool. Peta Bradley is a member of the Australian ice swimming team that recently competed at the World Ice Swimming Championships in France. She competed in the 1,000 metres, 500 metres and 50 metres butterfly, bringing home a bronze medal in the 500 metres. Peta hails from Gilgandra, which is in central New South Wales and quite some distance from any coastline, and does a lot of her training in dams. She's also completed the coveted Ice Mile at Thredbo. I started by asking Peta how someone from central New South Wales got into ice swimming.
Yeah, I've got asked that one a little bit lately, Mark. As you said, I grew up in central west New South Wales, at a small village called Armourtree, which it's about 100 odd k's northwest of Dubbo. We get a few frosts in winter, but 40 plus in summer is quite common. I got into ice swimming. Really, there's a local guy in Armidale, Pete Hancock. I think you've had him on the show. So he was swimming out in the dam for many years now in winter, and we all thought he was a little bit crazy. And then when COVID happened and the pools all closed, it was around March, I think, when the first lockdown was, and we started to follow him out, and the temperature started to drop. And we thought, oh, this is pretty cool. We can keep pushing ourselves. And throughout 2020, I really got into it. I was actually not in Armidale during that time when COVID hit, but I really got into it at the end of 2020, 2021, got into open water swimming out in the dam generally. So the dam I'm talking about is Jumeric Dam here in Armidale, which is, I think it's just over 1,000 metres above sea level. Gets quite cool. Started open water swimming out there, really enjoyed it. And then throughout 2021, 2022 winters, started swimming in cold water and really enjoying it.
Have you always been a swimmer ever since you were little?
Yeah, so grew up doing all the classic Aussie kid swimming. So started with swimming squad when I was around 8, and I really enjoyed it. I actually swam even in my HSC year. Swimming was, and doing swimming squad and competing, regional state level and weekend carnivals and things like that, right through my high school years. And then I came to Armidale for university and found a squad here, and have always swum basically throughout my whole life. So had a period of just doing it for fun, and then obviously have found ice swimming.
Yeah, so you're pretty good. You're probably underselling yourself a bit. So it sounds like you, from what I understand anyway, just sort of randomly swum qualifying times in the dam without even particularly trying.
Yeah, so as I said, there was a group of us that were going out there quite regularly throughout the winters, and we some of our Sunday swims, we'd end up at a local brewery not far or on the way home from the dam, and we were talking more and more about ice swimming, and we all started to do a bit of research into what was out there, and we've come across ISA, the International Ice Swimming Association, and obviously the Ice Mile being the epitome of, kind of the bar you set yourself to achieve in ice swimming. And when we started to look at, what you needed to do an Ice Mile, we found that, the qualifying times or qualifying distances and temperatures was something that we were doing on a Monday morning before work. We were out at the dam. Awesome. And it was 7 degrees and we were swimming a mile. Yep. So it kind of stemmed from there, and we built momentum. And then, at the end of last, in September in 2022, there was a group of us, we went through the process, did the qualifying swim, and organised to head down to Thredbo Ponds to complete the Ice Mile.
That's great. But that's a significant difference. As I understand, swimming in 7 degrees is obviously really hard and horrible, and I couldn't do it. But Thredbo was like 2 degrees, right? Or 3 degrees?
Yeah, I think my official temperature for the mile was 3.5, but down one end it was it was below 3, and at the high 3s at the other end. So it was a fair difference, absolutely. At that temperature, each degree makes such a difference, and that shows, like, even in the qualifying swim. So because it had got to September, the dam here in Armidale is the coldest in about July, and we were doing qualifying swims at mid to end August. So the temp had got up. So we did our qualifying swim was a 3Ks at 9 degrees,
Yep.
which is quite a distance for a qualifying swim for a mile. But the mile at 3.5 was significantly harder than 3Ks at 9 degrees.
Where do you feel it? In your arms? Like, I mean, I know the classic stories of things going numb and all the rest, but why is it harder? Where do you feel it?
I think it is in your hand. My first place I noticed it in my hands and my feet, and immediately when you get in that the ice cream headache, the brain freeze that you get, that's the immediate one. That kind of settles down as you start swimming. I guess it starts in your hands and your feet. And when we did the ice mile, I noticed it was immediate. It wasn't something, after the 9Ks, you started to feel it a fair way into your swim as things started to go numb. It was quite immediate in the water that you just didn't feel your hands for the entire swim. But then you start to, and I was aware of it when I was doing my ice mile swim, because I'd seen others go through it and what could actually happen to your body with ice swimming. And to me, it actually highlights, we've got lots of safety protocols in place with ice swimming, but they need to be there because things can deteriorate really quickly. When your core really cools and you start to get cold blood to your brain, and the disorientation, starting to take on water because you can't control your mouth as well. So when you're breathing, taking on water, that was something I was really conscious and aware of doing the ice mile, having seen what can happen, and going, is my body doing that? Where am I up to? How cold actually am I? I can't feel anything. I know I'm cold, but how cold am I?
I guess you've got to have a lot of trust in your team then to spot you if something goes wrong.
That's right. And knowing, we've within our team in Armidale, we had a couple of doctors that and them explaining the process and being so calm and cool, and knowing that's what happens to the body, but also knowing they can identify that if should that arise. Yeah.
And the world champs in France, that's amazing. Were there a few of you from Armidale go over, or just yourself?
Look, I think that I would have had a whole crew. There was some very excited athletes, but due to family commitments, and that January period isn't ideal for a lot of people. So it was only myself. There was 3 Aussies represent Australia. There are 2 others are actually they live in the UK, but very much Aussies at home, born and bred. So no one else from Armidale, just myself.
And incredible results. Congratulations. So you swam in the 1K, the 500 meters, and the 50 butterfly, which is not a usual pairing in normal circumstances. What was the buzz like? How did it feel over there? That must have been something else.
Oh, it was the most amazing experience. The first thing is going there and you're going, oh, it's got an opening ceremony, and it's very much representing your country, which is something crazy I never really thought of. And then I guess the first thing was the people I met over there. We were getting cold water, and that's that commonality is enough to bring people from all nationalities over it. I've made friends, the other Aussies that live in the UK, but there were other swimmers that I met on the first day when we were lining up to do a warm up in the pool, really just get a feel for the water and what the pool was like, and met them on the first day, and then we cheered each other on, in our individual events from other countries, and we've been in regular contact since. So that was amazing, and then even just to experience, and have people watch back home, and knowing that they were watching while I was in the water was a pretty cool feeling.
Oh, it's amazing. Is there? I mean, there's a bit of a European circuit on the ice swimming. Are you tempted to pack up and join?
It was very hard to get on a plane home, knowing that there was that week there was something in Morocco, and then the following week there was something else somewhere else in Europe. I could have stayed many more weeks and done a few more competitions.
And how do you train for it? I mean, I guess I understand that the distance and all that sort of thing, but how do you train for the cold?
Yeah, I think from our ice mile attempt, the big thing for me was having good pool fitness anyway. So doing your sets, training hard in the pool, but that exposure to cold water, not in the sense of just being cold, but swimming in the cold, so turning your arms over. I don't think as a training technique that is absolute number one, that repeated cold exposure, going through recovery, 3-4 times a week, like we were with our pool sets. That was number one. The World Champs was a bit of a difficult one, being January, knowing that we don't have cold water. It kind of started to warm up again by end of September. So what I was doing was, so where my office is at work, it's on the university campus here in Armidale. So the Sport UNE is literally just down the hill. So that's the sporting complex at the University of New England. And I told them about what I was doing, and they really kindly lent me their wheelie bin, their ice wheelie bin, and the ice machine. So I was doing ice baths, but also knowing that we produce a lot more lactate in cold water, trying to replicate some lactate sessions in the pool to build that I guess threshold that you're going to be under when your body's racing in cold water.
I can imagine that you might take a bit of a scientific approach to this, being a geneticist. There must be some good collaboration possibility with the UNE sports scientists.
Yeah, they haven't had the chance to study me yet, but they certainly could. And like I said, all of us that did an ice mile were assigned, Pete Hancock and myself are science-based jobs, and then a couple of doctors who, they one of them's an anaesthetist, and he took the approach of what do we do when someone's going under anesthetic and the cooling reaction that happens to the body. What do we do to prevent that? And applied that science to preparing for a cold water swim. Let's build our core thermal mass up. We don't want to be expending energy sweating. So we kind of applied a lot of that science to what we're doing, which was pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting. I remember Pete talking about, because he was a freshwater ecologist or something like that, being able to go swimming and basically as part of his job. Unfortunately, I don't know whether farm genetics gets you swimming much. I don't know.
No, unfortunately not, but get to go to some cool places and swim in some cool pools and open water, which is good.
And so what's next, do you think? Like what have you set your sights
on? I've got a few things in mind, and I think I'd like to keep challenging myself in the ice water. So looking for opportunities to do that, either here in Australia or the New Zealand crew. They took a really strong team over to France to the World Champs, and they also have their own domestic competition. So that one's certainly one I've flagged as something I'd be interested in. Working on growing the sport of ice swimming in Australia. We've got quite a few ice milers. We've got, I think, out of the countries, we've got the 5th most ice milers, but we actually had a very, very small delegation over at the World Champs. So there's good opportunity to create domestic events like New Zealand has, and attract people not just domestically, but that would travel for it. So I think there's good opportunity to explore options of where we can do that in Australia. We're somewhat limited geographically, and how cold water gets, and guaranteed cold water at certain times of the year. But also, one of the guys that really encouraged me to take the leap to go to the World Championships was Brendan Cullen. I think you might have had him on the podcast as well, who did an English Channel swim last year, which was incredible. And he said, take the opportunity, and we're just exploring options now of a relay team over there within the next 12 months. So that's underway, and we'll see where that goes.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's not that's a real crew coming out of the desert
Yeah.
going to swim in the ocean. I mean, that in itself is really interesting. Do you get to the coast very often to swim in the ocean?
Um, but not as much as I'd like, I think. Armidale's we're quite lucky. We're only probably a couple of hours from Coffs Harbour's our nearest coastal point.
Okay. Yeah.
But done a couple of ocean swims, but certainly don't get there as much as I would like. That's for sure.
Do you have you've talked about the idea of setting up domestic league or something like that. Do you have what would be the glorious goal? What would be on the bucket list of things to do?
If I had, yeah, like I think that the gold standard of what it could possibly look like would be certainly a national championships of some sort, pool or open water, depending what's available. But yeah, look, really keen to continue to grow the sport. I think it's certainly not for everyone, and that's totally okay. But for those that are interested or want to take that next step, or are there either people that like cold water that might take up swimming, or swimmers that might think they like cold water? I think that's the two ways you can come to the sport. I was the latter. That's probably something that I think would be really cool to have here in Australia.
You certainly do read a lot about people that kind of use cold water for meditation or for mindfulness or for that sort of thing. Is that what was it like at the World Champs? Were there many people that came to it from that angle, or were they mostly swimmers?
A real mix. And there was some particularly, in the long course, but also some of the short course things that are really typical swimmers like that. These guys are pros at masters level doing that shorter distance sprint stuff. So there's a lot of that, but there's also people that have come to swimming later in life that were never swimmers as kids, like I was growing up. And I think that's the real beauty of the sport. That it's actually challenging on a couple of levels. Particularly for the distance events when it comes to that tolerance and being able to withstand what's going on with your body. And so I think that the mix is actually what makes ice swimming a really cool sport.
It's actually something I noticed looking at the results is there's a real wide range of ages. So
Yeah.
you would have been on the younger end, I imagine.
Yeah, in the certainly the age group I was in, the 25 to 29 is really competitive. Like the world record holder in the 1,000 and the 500 from Germany, she's in that age group. So it's a really people hitting their straps then. But yeah, it was really amazing. Ellery, one of the other Australians, she was competing in the 70. She's 76. So that was incredible. She did really well. She's got world records for her age group, and to chat to her about her experiences. And she's a fanatic. She's been to the winter swimming championships just recently with great results as well. So fantastic to meet her. And Nick Hungerford was the other Aussie over there, and he's one of those guys that have come to swimming later in life, but did really well again within his respective age group. So that longevity of the sport is really cool, and there's those options to grow within your age group and be competitive within people within the similar age is very cool.
And I certainly noticed women were more often than not as up there with the men.
Yeah, I think there's again putting my science brain on. I think there's probably a physiological component of it. Women do naturally have higher body fat percentages, and I think that certainly does help in some components. World records are, as you expect, similar to what we see in normal pool swimming. But look, I think there's something. I maybe don't feel the cold quite as much as some of my male counterparts. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I mean, possibly. So yeah, I guess that means you have to continually eat. Your training must involve a lot of eating.
Yeah, it was something I was conscious of, particularly training for World Champs when I ramped it up. When I was training hard, I was doing 5K a day, 20 plus K a week, plus a bit of other stuff in between, a bit of other sport and walking and that kind of thing. Yeah, I did drop a kilo or two, and I realized that probably wasn't the wisest thing to do, unfortunately, as you know, as much as everyone probably would like to. So I was calorie counting for the wrong reasons. I was calorie counting to try and exactly match output and input to maintain body weight, which I think that certainly helped over there. That's for sure.
I actually meant to ask you earlier. I'm sorry. So, how do you compare the 50 fly to the 100 to the 1K? Very different races.
Very different races. And if I had my time again, I realized, coming from growing up as a swimmer, I did a bit of butterfly, but as I've got older, I relish the long distance events now. I'm not a sprinter anymore by any means. Still don't mind a bit of butterfly, but it is very, very different. You're not in the water; it's a splash and dash. And after doing the longer distance ones, I couldn't believe how quickly it was over. But doing that in cold water was hard. Butterflying, not getting a mouthful of water, or when you did, it was really cold. That was harder, and I certainly admire the sprinters being able to do the times that they do in cold water. That's pretty incredible. But for me, I'm a long distance swimmer, and I think I'd set my training to the longer events. The 50 fly was I used to do butterfly as a kid. It'll be a bit of fun. Bit of fun to do. So look, I think I'd probably add the 250 free to my mix. Would I do it again?
Yeah. When you go down to the UNE pool, does it feel like a bath? Does it feel really gross?
all the pools feel pretty warm now.
Right. It's amazing. It's such a great story. And I mean, we haven't talked it up. You got a bronze medal as well.
Yeah. Was really happy with I exceeded my expectations with times. I kind of set goals. And my coach, our coach here in Armidale, James Hardwood from High Country Swimming, he's been phenomenal with my training, or with picking me up. He found me at the Sport UNE pool when I was a uni student, just doing a few laps, and said, "Hey, come and join. We've got an adult squad." And he really kept my interest in swimming going, I think, in my 8 or so years here in Armidale. And he was really good, and we sat, we worked out which events and some times and our training program. So yeah, really targeted those longer distance events. That's for sure.
How do you set a time? Like you said that you're happy with your times. How do you know what time you're going to swim when you can't swim 1,000 meters in less than 5 degrees very often?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of mass. I probably because you had to put in a qualifying time so that you could go into your heats, and the qualifying times I worked out from my ice mile we had splits from my ice mile in September. And then we worked out where I was at different Ks, roughly, splits per 100 meters. And then took a bit of time off that, because obviously not going for a mile, going for a kilometer. So I kind of had some rough times in my mind. But the biggest thing for me in France was actually realizing I'd never raced in cold water. I'd swum in cold water, and the mile, I was it's about completing it. It's not so much about your time. Obviously, you want to get out of the water quicker, but trying to get in that rhythm that you're comfortable, you can sustain. Whereas racing in cold water was totally different. Totally different experience in my body. I noticed it in my lungs.
Thank you very much to Peta Bradley for taking so much time to chat to me about ice swimming, the World Ice Swimming Championships in France, and open water swimming in general. We actually recorded a little bit more than that, but being the consummate professional I am, my recorder ran out of space, so we lost a little bit at the end, and I'm really sorry about that. If you'd like any more information on Peter's exploits, then get over to the website at www.thepodpodcast.net. That's www.thepodpodcast.net. Thanks again to Peter, and thanks for listening in. I'll catch you next time, hopefully not too far away this time, on the pod.